Hi, I'm Bakhtiar Sanov and welcome to AnewZ. Let's see the top stories. Hamas makes hostage pledge but demands changes to US Gaza ceasefire plan. Poland votes for new president in high-stakes runoff election. Turkish defense company Aselsan has been selected as one of 5 firms chosen by the NATO Support and Procurement Agency. Hamas has responded to a US-backed Gaza ceasefire proposal offering to release hostages, but demanding key changes to the deal. Both Israel and Washington have called the response unacceptable.
Hamas says it's willing to release 10 Israeli hostages and the remains of 18 more in exchange for more than 1,200 Palestinian prisoners, but only if key parts of the US-backed ceasefire proposal are changed. The group is pushing for a permanent truce, full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and guaranteed humanitarian access, none of which are included in the current deal. A document seen by Reuters lays out Hamas's conditions: reopening the Rafah crossing for free civilian movement, the resumption of goods deliveries, and rebuilding Gaza's shattered infrastructure, from water and electricity to hospitals, schools and bakeries. The response was submitted to US envoy Steve Witkoff, who dismissed it as totally unacceptable and accused Hamas of stalling, while Israel's Defense Minister Katz warned Hamas to either accept the deal or face annihilation. On the ground, the humanitarian situation continues to deteriorate. Gaza's health ministry says more than 54,000 people have been killed since the war began, with aid agencies warning of widespread starvation. The UN has called Gaza's current situation the worst in the 19-month war, saying the entire population is at risk of famine.
At least 30 people were killed and over 100 injured in an airstrike near an aid distribution site in Rafah. The area was managed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a group recently approved to operate with Israeli backing. There was no immediate comment from Israel on the reported attack. The Israeli military previously acknowledged firing warning shots near a GHF site to manage crowds, but denied striking the facility directly. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday that Ukraine will attend a meeting in Istanbul on Monday, proposed by Russia. Writing on Telegram after holding talks with senior officials, Zelensky confirmed the decision. He added that Defense Minister Rustem Umerov will once again lead the Ukrainian delegation. No further details were provided about the agenda of the meeting. Ukraine claims to have hit more than 40 Russian bombers in what appears to be one of the most audacious attacks so far on Russian aviation. According to a statement from Ukraine's security service, Ukraine conducted a large-scale special operation aimed at destroying enemy bomber aircraft. It has released dramatic video, which it says shows a drone attack at the Belaya Air Base in Irkutsk Oblast in Siberia. Reports suggest other aircraft have been attacked at the Olenia Air Base near Murmansk. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian authorities say that 472 drones and 7 ballistic and cruise missiles were involved in last night's wave of attacks on Ukraine. This would appear to be one of the largest single Russian drone attacks so far. Poles headed to the polls on Sunday for a decisive presidential runoff that could shape the country's political direction for years to come. Turnout will hold the key to the contest between Rafał Trzaskowski of ruling centrist Civic Coalition and Karol Nawrocki, backed by nationalist Law and Justice. While the Polish presidency holds limited executive power, the ability to veto legislation gives the role significant influence. Outgoing President Andrzej Duda, a Law and Justice ally, frequently used his veto to block efforts by Prime Minister Donald Tusk to reverse controversial judicial reforms enacted by the previous government. With Trzaskowski holding a slight lead in the latest polls, voter turnout is expected to be a decisive factor. Polls close at 9 p.m. local time, with exit polls to follow shortly after. Final results are expected on Monday morning or early afternoon, according to the Electoral Commission. South Koreans are heading to the polls next week in a snap presidential election following the dramatic ousting of former leader Yoon Suk-yeol. But as candidates are ramping up their campaigns, concerns are growing that political divisions are overshadowing serious policy debate.
South Korea is heading into a snap presidential election and voters are facing a race heavy on politics but light on policy. Supporters of the two leading candidates, the conservative Kim Moon-soo and the liberal Lee Jae-myung, are rallying across the country. But experts are saying what's missing is knowing what the two candidates will actually do. Park Kyung-jun, head of the Korean Association for Policy Studies, is saying voters aren't getting enough to judge how pledges will affect their lives.
Voters should be able to assess how a pledge affects them personally and make choices accordingly. Something like, this candidate's policy will impact me in this way, so I'll vote for them. But we saw very little of that.
Even this week, most candidates are only releasing summaries. Full policy booklets are landing just days before early voting, and on key issues like foreign policy and national security, experts say candidates are staying vague. Professor Nam Tae-woo is saying many are dodging tough questions, especially on foreign policy with the US, China, and Japan.
Foreign policy and national security are areas where we're seeing generational divides and complex concerns. But many candidates seem to be avoiding clear positions on these in their pledges.
It's also been a notable issue. There's no female presidential candidate for the first time in nearly 2 decades. And on the streets of Seoul, the message from voters is clear. They want more focus on real-world issues such as housing and inflation.
This is ignoring the voices of the many women who braved the freezing cold and spent nights in the square demanding the restoration of democracy.
I wish they had taken housing supply and boosting domestic market more seriously in their pledges, but perhaps because it's a snap election, that kind of in-depth consideration seems to be missing, which is a bit disappointing.
Turnout is already breaking early voting records, and with election day set for the 3rd of June, many are heading to the polls, still looking for answers after months of political chaos.
2 people are dead, a police officer is in a coma, and nearly 600 have been arrested across France following celebrations of Paris Saint-Germain's first ever Champions League win.
2 people died and hundreds were arrested during chaotic celebrations across France after Paris Saint-Germain's first Champions League title win. The night began with jubilant scenes in Paris and other cities, but turned violent in several areas, prompting a large-scale police response. A 17-year-old boy was stabbed to death during celebrations in the town of Dax. In Paris, a 23-year-old man died after his scooter was struck by a car. Police said both incidents are under investigation. In Coutances, a police officer was gravely injured by fireworks and placed in a medically induced coma. Officials reported 192 injuries nationwide, including 4 people in serious condition. In Paris, crowds gathered around the Eiffel Tower, the Champs-Élysées and the Parc des Princes Stadium. While most fans celebrated peacefully, clashes broke out overnight. Police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse groups throwing fireworks and other objects. 2 cars were torched and 4 shops looted, according to local authorities. By Sunday morning, 559 arrests had been made across the country, including 491 in the capital. Police say many of those detained were carrying fireworks or involved in vandalism. In another incident in Grenoble, a car drove into PSG supporters, injuring 4 members of the same family. 2 were seriously hurt. Police believe the crash was not intentional. Despite the unrest, PSG's victory parade is set to go ahead Sunday afternoon. Central Paris remains under tight security, with thousands of police officers deployed and road closures in place.
Spain's Seville is experiencing intense heat, with temperatures reaching as high as 46 degrees, prompting authorities to urge residents to stay hydrated.
Southern Spain is experiencing a severe heat wave, with temperatures expected to rise above 42 degrees Celsius in Seville. The city baked in extreme heat as temperatures surged to 46 degrees Celsius, prompting locals and tourists alike to cool off by fanning themselves and splashing water on children and animals. Residents and visitors shared mixed reactions to the early arrival of the heat.
It's way too hot. I really can't handle the heat. I'm more of a winter person. These temperatures are just too much for me.
Around this time of year, it took much longer for the heat to arrive. It's usually quite hot during the fair, but this year the weather has behaved.
People were seen lining up to refill water bottles and seeking refuge in bars and shaded areas as the city grappled with the sweltering conditions. Experts largely attribute these extreme weather events to global warming and warn of increasingly severe climate-related disasters unless global temperatures are kept within 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the target set by the Paris Climate Accord. Spanish authorities have urged residents to stay hydrated and take precautions during this unusually early and intense heat wave.
Scientists say climate change is no longer a future threat. It's here and it's heating up our world faster than expected. A new report warns that extreme heat is affecting billions of people. While in Europe, leaders are preparing a major climate target for 2040, but not without controversy.
A stark warning from scientists this week: human-caused climate change is making the world hotter, faster. Over the past year alone, half of the global population experienced 30 additional days of extreme heat. A new report from World Weather Attribution, Climate Central, and the Red Cross Climate Centre finds that heat waves are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more deadly. The researchers say climate change has doubled the number of extreme heat days in 195 countries. They call it an underappreciated threat, one that many governments still underestimate. The findings come just days before Heat Action Day, urging global leaders to take extreme heat seriously. The report recommends better monitoring, stronger early warning systems, and the rollout of heatwave action plans. The findings come just days before Heat Action Day, urging global leaders to take extreme heat seriously. The report recommends better monitoring, stronger early warning systems, and the rollout of heatwave action plans. But while scientists raise the alarm, European politicians face growing backlash over green policies. The European Commission plans to unveil a new climate target in July. Diplomats say Brussels wants to include flexibilities in the proposal. That can mean lower emission targets for domestic industries or allowing countries to buy international carbon credits to make up the difference. Some nations back the plan, like Finland, the Netherlands and Denmark, whilst others, including Italy and the Czech Republic, remain opposed. With Europe warming faster than ever, the balance between environmental action and economic costs remains under fierce debate.
Thousands of Muslims have gathered for prayers at Meccas Grand Mosque. This comes ahead of the Hajj pilgrimage scheduled to begin on June the 4th.
Thousands of Muslims have gathered for prayers at Meccas Grand Mosque ahead of the Hajj pilgrimage. The pilgrims have come from various countries in the world, with some visiting the holy Muslim site for the first time. They have expressed joy and gratitude for being able to perform the pilgrimage.
I have wanted to come here for a long time to see the Kaaba. This is the first time I see it, and I am very, very, very happy that I am seeing the Kaaba. I am very, very happy and pleased. I asked God for it, and praise be to God, God has given it to me. Praise be to God.
Hajj is an annual pilgrimage that draws millions of Muslims to the holy city of Mecca, where they carry out a series of sacred rituals first practiced by the Prophet Muhammad over 1,400 years ago. As the fifth pillar of Islam, it's a religious duty required once in a lifetime for every physically and financially able Muslim, representing the highest expression of Islamic faith, devotion, and global unity. The pilgrimage takes place during the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar, meaning its timing shifts each year in relation to the solar calendar. This year will take place from June 4th to June 9th. More than 1 million people have already travelled to Mecca.
Iran is reviewing a new U.S. proposal for a nuclear agreement, according to Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arashi. The proposal was relayed by Oman's Foreign Minister during a brief visit to Tehran on Saturday. Arashi stated on X that Iran will respond to U.S. proposal in line with the principles in national interest and rights of people of Iran. His statement came ahead of an anticipated sixth round of talks between Washington and Tehran to resolve a decades-long dispute over Iran's nuclear program. The date and venue of the talks have not been announced yet. White House press secretary confirmed that President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has submitted a detailed and acceptable proposal and urged Iran to accept the offer.
The Secretary of Health and Human Services announced more like
The International Atomic Energy Agency has identified Iran's covert nuclear activities at 3 undeclared sites and a significant increase in its enriched uranium stockpile, prompting potential international repercussions.
A confidential report by the International Atomic Energy Agency has revealed that Iran conducted covert nuclear activities at 3 undeclared sites, Lavisan Shian, Varamin and Turkuzabad, using materials not reported to the agency. These findings suggest the existence of a structured nuclear program that was active until the early 2000s. The IAEA criticized Iran's lack of satisfactory cooperation and noted unexplained uranium traces at certain sites. In a separate report, the IAEA stated that as of May 17th, Iran's stockpile of uranium enriched up to 60% purity had increased by nearly 50%, reaching 408.6 kilograms. This quantity is sufficient, if further enriched, for 9 nuclear weapons, raising serious concerns among international observers. The United States, United Kingdom, France and Germany are considering submitting a draft resolution at the upcoming IAEA Board of Governors meeting to formally declare Iran in violation of its non-proliferation obligations. Such a resolution would mark the first formal non-compliance finding against Iran in nearly 2 decades. Iran's foreign ministry has rejected the IAEA's report as politically motivated and warned of appropriate measures in response to any actions taken against the country. These developments come amid ongoing nuclear negotiations between Tehran and Washington, with the potential to further complicate diplomatic efforts.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arashi is set to visit Egypt and Lebanon on Monday and Tuesday to engage in high-level discussions on regional issues and bilateral relations. Arakshi's visit to Egypt marks the first by an Iranian foreign minister in over a decade, highlighting a significant step in diplomatic engagement between the two nations. In Cairo, he is expected to meet with President of Egypt and Foreign Minister to discuss efforts to de-escalate tensions in Gaza and Lebanon and to address humanitarian concerns. Following his visit to Egypt, Arashi will travel to Lebanon, where he will hold talks with the Lebanese officials to further discuss regional stability and cooperation. Saudi Arabia and Qatar have announced a joint initiative to provide financial support to state employees in Syria over a 3-month period. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud made the announcement during a press conference in Damascus with his Syrian counterpart Assad al-Shibani. While the exact sum hasn't been disclosed, this move follows a previous contribution in April by both Gulf nations to pay off Syria's $15 million debt to the World Bank. Syria is hoping to revive its pharmaceutical industry after the United States and EU lifted key sanctions.
In Syria, efforts are underway to revive the country's pharmaceutical industry following recent moves by the US and European Union to lift key sanctions. The restrictions, imposed during the civil war, had cut off access to raw materials, replacement parts and foreign partnerships, pushing the local drug industry into steep decline. The Ministry of Health estimates that only a fifth of the cancer drug demand could be met domestically. Many families were forced to seek treatment abroad or turn to costly alternatives on the black market. Now, with sanctions eased, manufacturers like Unipharma in Damascus say they've resumed talks with international suppliers to restart stalled production lines and begin importing critical ingredients. Before the war, Syria was considered a regional hub for medicine manufacturing. Officials hope the renewed access to equipment and materials will help rebuild that capacity and ease the burden on families who've struggled to find or afford treatment. However, while the latest moves open some doors, much of the global banking system remains off limits to Syria, and broader US sanctions still hang over the economy.
In a significant boost to Turkey's international defense profile, the country's leading defense firm Aselsan has been selected by the NATO Support and Procurement Agency to take part in a key defense initiative. The project, known as the Modular Ground-Based Air Defense, or GBAD, brings together some of the world's top defense companies. Turkish defense company Aselsan has joined four of the world's top defense giants: Airbus Defence and Space GmbH, Lockheed Martin UK, Raytheon, and Thales LAS in a major NATO initiative to develop modular air defense solutions. The selection marks a milestone for Turkey's defense industry and underscores Aselsan's growing international reputation. The NATO Support and Procurement Agency, or NSPA, says the 5 companies will begin with a concept study phase, focusing on system architecture. This foundational work will help shape the future of NATO's modular, flexible, and interoperable air defense infrastructure. Project deliverables are due by mid-September, when the most viable system designs will be evaluated. According to NATO officials, the agreement demonstrates both effective multinational coordination and the efficiency of NATO's internal procurement mechanisms. Each company will contribute independently, offering innovative perspectives and solutions in a competitive framework. The overall goal is to meet NATO's demanding operational and logistical requirements with systems that not only advanced, but also adaptable and sustainable. For Turkey, Aselsan's involvement serves as international validation of its indigenous capabilities in layered air defense. From barrel systems to a full spectrum of missile defense solutions, short, medium, and long range, Aselsan has positioned itself as a reliable and technologically mature defense partner. This step forward also supports NATO's ambition to become the preferred hub for multinational defense procurement, reinforcing collective security through shared innovation. Turkey is taking a significant step forward in its energy independence journey. The country's first ever floating natural gas production unit, Osman Gazi, has officially arrived at its new home in the Black Sea. Designed to double the nation's offshore gas production, the vessel marks a major milestone in Turkey's natural gas strategy. Turkey's first floating natural gas production unit, Osman Gazi, docked at Filios port in Zonguldak on the Black Sea coast on Saturday, marking a new era in the country's offshore energy capabilities. The vessel was dispatched on May 29th from the presidential Dolmabahce office in Istanbul during a high-profile ceremony commemorating the 572nd anniversary of the conquest of Istanbul. After passing through the strategic Istanbul Strait, Osman Gazi arrived at its deployment zone in the Black Sea, where it will play a critical role in ramping up national gas output. Once full operational, the platform will have the capacity to process up to 10.5 million cubic meters of natural gas per day and deliver as much as 10 million cubic meters daily to onshore facilities. This boost will double Turkey's current natural gas production in the Black Sea, increasing total output to 20 million cubic meters per day. According to officials, the projected increase in production will be sufficient to meet the natural gas needs of approximately 8 million households across the country. Osman Gazi will operate at its designated site for 20 years. It's a massive structure, 298.5 meters long, 56 meters wide and 29.5 meters deep, and is designed to house 140 personnel on board. Preparatory work is ongoing, with operations scheduled to begin by mid-2026. This move is seen as a key part of Turkey's long-term goal to reduce energy imports and strengthen its energy security through domestic resources. The Zangaz Corridor will support the Middle Transport Corridor. This was stated by the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure of Turkey, Abdülkadir Uraloğlu, speaking at the conference International Corridors and Turkey. Uraloğlu emphasized the strategic importance of the Zangaz Corridor in bolstering the Middle Corridor trade route. He announced that construction of the 224-kilometer Kars-İğdır-Aralık Dilucu railway line is set to commence by the end of this year, with an expected completion timeline of 5 years. This railway will connect Kars to the Dilucu border crossing, enhancing Turkey's connectivity with Azerbaijan and Central Asia. Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan have taken important steps to strengthen their judicial cooperation. During an official visit to Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan's Minister of Justice Farid Ahmadov met with his Uzbek counterpart Akbar Tashkulov to discuss ways to expand ties between their countries' legal systems. They signed a cooperation program for 2025 to 2026 between the two justice ministries. The agreement includes joint efforts in legal training, digitalization of judicial services, legislative reforms, notarial practices, and forensic expertise. The first international tourist train from Xi'an, China, arrived at Almaty 2 station in Kazakhstan, marking a significant milestone in a rail tourism and cultural exchange between the two nations. A 9-carriage train carrying 246 passengers, including business people, scientists, actors, athletes, and tourists, traveled through Urumqi, Korgos, and Atkinol before arriving at Almaty. A ceremonial welcome marked its arrival, with officials from both countries' transport and tourism sectors in attendance. The initiative aims to boost rail tourism and deepen cultural ties with China. Shusha hosted the International Children's Creativity Festival titled Shusha, the Cultural Pearl of Turkic Unity, organized by Azerbaijan's Ministry of Science and Education. The event brought together nearly 300 school children from Azerbaijan, Turkey, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, and Hungary, who showcased their country's music and dance traditions. The festival aimed to strengthen friendship and cooperation among Turkic-speaking nations, allowing children to proudly represent their national cultures and experience the beauty of Shusha. Well, that's all we have for now from Baku. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates and have a wonderful day.